Beyond Good Evil, um, Part 4. We'll start there with the aphorism 63. So, whoever is a teacher through and through takes all things seriously only in relation to his students, even himself. Um, what I got out of this is that you kind of have to take the act of teaching itself seriously in terms of understanding things, even himself included, how he carries himself and how he presents himself. Any thoughts?
Nah.
The other addition that I want to put into this is that the way I see the teacher student is all like it's both has like how you discuss philosophy with others, because if it's a new topic or new idea, you are the teacher and they are the student and vice versa. And at the same time, when you try to learn something and you don't understand yourself, you kind of have to also be a teacher to yourself. So as that teacher student relationship is something I feel like it's both inside and outside. And yeah,
Yeah.
so that's Nietzsche's take, that you should kind of take it seriously, in which I would say is like you have to kind of be thorough with it, I guess. And yeah, not lose. Anyways,
Yeah.
aphorism 64: knowledge for its own sake, that is the last snare of morality. With that, one becomes completely entangled in it once more. Any thoughts?
Nah.
All right. This is I wanted to share more about is how thinking is good, but overthinking is an issue. Nietzsche says talks about hermits, kind of closing themselves out from the rest of society and then seeking out knowledge for his own sake. Like, oh, I'm going to get enlightened without interacting with society, and that itself, ends up you kind of get um, lost in it, and you don't really tie it to reality, and therefore it has no real substance because you just like kind of get caught in the webs of it. Um, so in other words, you have to. It's important to reflect, but of course you have to always tie it to reality. And you shouldn't think, and Nietzsche have stated this elsewhere. You shouldn't think that the exception is the most important rather than the rule. That is, you have to understand the patterns in which society works and whatnot, and you have to interact with it. And even if you're a higher type, that is kind of like something you have to bear and live through, rather than like, I'm gonna just lock myself in a library full of books and just study what people have gathered over the years.
Right.
It doesn't quite get you to the same place because you get entangled in it, and it's kind of an argument Nietzsche has against scholars as well, because they're so caught up in reading books and studying more than living. So yeah,
Right.
yeah, but yeah, it happens with your own brain in terms of like overthinking versus thinking and living. All right,
Yeah.
now aphorism 65: the attraction of knowledge would be small if one did not have to overcome so much shame on the way. um,
Knowledge would be small if one did not. Hmm.
it's almost like saying that there is a pain tied to gaining the knowledge. That's kind of what attracts us to it, and it's not all of us, I guess. Some people are attracted to that kind of pain that produces knowledge. And to kind of bring Jung into this, Jung said that you should be careful of all kinds of knowledge that you have gained without struggling or without some pain tied to it, because It could be completely like made up or whatnot, because there is no real grounding to reality with some knowledge. So pain, and it's kind of like the knowledge is the lessons learned from that pain.
Mm.
And I guess the value of that knowledge is tied to the shame or the pain that produced that knowledge. That's one way of looking at it.
All right. Yeah, I can reckon that.
All right. Aphorism 65. One is most dishonest to one's God. He's not allowed to sin. Any clues as to this? Anything to add?
Hold on, let me just reread that again. One is most. Okay. Out of everything that one person has obligation to, his God is the one that he is most dishonest towards. Not allowed to sin.
It's a very interesting aphorism because you're like, hey, what is he trying to say here? Which is interesting. I took it a different direction as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the way I looked at it
One,
is that, yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to like discern like the subject and predicate here. He is not allowed to sin. A person is most honest to their God. Um, he is not allowed to sin. I'm like, is it the person that's not allowed to sin, or the God that's not allowed to sin?
The person. That's how I
Okay.
read it. Yeah.
Okay, but that's the thing. The person is the most dishonest to their God.
Yeah. Because
So,
he has to be dishonest, because to be honest is to admit to your sins, right? So he has to lie to his own God, because in front of his God he has to stay pure. He has to be completely sinless, right? Like, as if, oh, I did not do that, I didn't do this. So he has to pretend, because he's not allowed to sin in front of his God.
I guess
um,
he's speaking in a Christian context, so that makes sense.
that's I took it a different way, as on top of that, although that is true as well. um, is that you have an ideal in your mind, right? Like, of like the way to act, the way to live, and all so forth, right? And in a way, the decisions that you make throughout your whole life, you kind of go, okay, you rationalize it, like why you did this or why you did that or why you had to do that. And you never see yourself as the bad guy, right? Because you're always like, I did this because that felt the right thing to do, or at that time that seemed the most reasonable. You never see yourself as bad. And if you take even the worst criminal in the world, he'll say the same thing: I had to do the things I did, or I did things that were true to my nature, or the way that I felt was right, at that time. So it's in that way, like, you kind of rationalize to yourself and to the highest parts of yourself, like why you had to do it a certain way. You never admit to your wrongdoings. You never, like, even the worst murderer doesn't um, sit there like right before murdering being like, this is a really terrible thing to do, because if he really believed in that, he wouldn't do it. So he lies to himself in one way or another, or rationalizes, or comes up with reasons for why he must do this, and why that is in the right. Because if he's not able to convince himself, then he will, he won't be able to carry it out. You have to believe that what you're doing is rational, and that it makes sense to do what you're doing.
All right.
This is interesting because I mean, you can take it both ways. People confessing their sins also, they won't they'll try to keep things away because they don't want to be completely honest about what they have done. That's another reading, like you said, Christianity and whatnot. All right, 66. The inclination to deprecate himself, to let himself be robbed, lied to, and taken advantage of, could be the modesty of a god among men. Yeah, the way I see it is like someone who's a higher type is someone who has an abundance of resources, right? Someone who is um, kind of sacrifices himself, throws himself. He's. I think Nietzsche mentioned some word. What's the right word for it? In a way, it's kind of like it's an overflowing cup, right? That's kind of how you would picture someone who is a higher type. So he can be taken advantage of. People can rob him, lie to him, and it doesn't matter because he's able to deal with the sacrifices without it affecting who he is, because he is. So his spirit is much stronger that he doesn't let these external things um, take away from who he is. Kind of goes along with that other aphorism of Nietzsche, where you have to be a stream that is able to take in other polluted streams, or
Yeah,
other polluted
one must be
streams
able to
without.
wash their clothes with dirty water.
Yeah, there's like multiple aphorisms that's kind of says the same thing, where you should be, if a sign of a strong spirit is his ability to take in impurities and still stay pure. In the same way, you can be robbed, lied to, the world has been unfair to you, but if your spirit is strong, none of all of that really even just like makes it stronger. If anything, it does never really takes it away from you. It doesn't make you go the other direction. And I think, I forget where Nietzsche talked about this. He also said about um, na- with regards to nations, like a sign of a strong nation is how strongly it feels the need to punish the wrongdoers. So, like a really, really powerful nation in the future, literally just goes to the somebody who did a crime, like, it's okay, don't worry about it, because they can handle the
Yeah.
the the evil or whatever that the other person tried to do, because it doesn't affect them because they're too powerful. And
So
that's
a little
God.
contentious, but contemporary example, like a lot of people, there are some cultures, just I think more so nowadays than in the past, due to things like postmodernity, modernity even, but postmodern ways of viewing like liberal culture, democratic culture. I think what Nietzsche in some cases has talked to has come to pass, where you have this political issue or geopolitical issue, domestic issue, however you want to look at it, of immigration, and especially cultures in Western Europe, unlike say the U.S., for better for worse. I say for the worse, but that's a different talk. Like that that Western cultures in Europe have a hard time with assimilation. There's a few countries that have been very strict about assimilation, and
Hmm.
so the result is that they can show through their culture that they can maintain a level of, uh, let's say, uniformity when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to like their culture. Where in the same hand, those who are too lax or find it to be politically contentious to be strong with their borders find, uh, contrary wise, that they can't they can't keep cultural hegemony intact. Not homogeneity, but just hegemony intact because of just some of the rampant behaviors that end up transpiring.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, is the strength of a society to be able to take a mix of people or whatnot, and this disunity that comes with it, and still have that sense of unity within, because it's so strong. that's a sign of a strong nation. For another way to put it is like, if you look at if a country is able to take in a lot of people and help a lot of people and still be very, very like powerful, that's a
Yeah.
good sign of a really powerful country, you know, because it doesn't um doesn't get reduced easily, right? Because it's so powerful. Like, what is an ant to a god, right? It doesn't really affect the god. Like, the god can, like, the ant could do the worst possible thing and the god would be like, yeah, that doesn't really affect me whatsoever, because that's a sign of a really powerful spirit.
Right.
And
I imagine, like, metaphorically, there's like some other god across the way that isn't as powerful, and like unlike the god that's swatting flies away with ease, like he's just swatting at flies and kind of maybe lazily, sometimes like with some level of effort, but failing and
yeah,
realizing that the god the other way, as they may not admit it, is of a powerful, more powerful constitution than say
yeah,
this god or something like that.
yeah, yeah. And I like the fact that he calls uses the term God here, because it's like, it's there itself is the idea. It's an ideal in a sense of like, it's not easily attainable to be like, oh, I can be robbed, I could be, lied to and whatnot. I'm not gonna let it affect me. It's a very hard place to stay. To be that strong of a spirit that you don't let the external world or the corruption of the external world influence the purity of your spirit, right? The strength of your spirit.
Right.
All right. Now, love of one is barbarism, for it is exercised at the expense of all others. The love of God too. Um, does that kind of get it? Like, um, kind of tied to Nietzsche's other ideas of like, don't have a conviction, like, don't feel strongly of like, this is an unconditional rule or this is an unconditional situation, because that you're kind of ignoring all the other possibilities, right? And the same thing is, if you're like, this is the one true God, you're ignoring all the other possibilities of what God is and all the other interpretations of it, right? And so that's kind of what it says. It's like, it's primitive to think that there is only one way or there is a rule, that it has to be only this way. It's only, any rule is temporary, right? It's tied to the context of the society, um,
Mhm.
or the timeline, right? It's not like this rule is always true, kind of thing. Yeah, so you have to remember that when you're following one, there's an opportunity cost that you're giving up the all the other paths, right? If you can only go down one path, you're giving up the other paths, and that's the other way of looking at it.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. No, I'd say
Right.
so, yeah.
All right, 68.
Oh, page turner. Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah. Cool. I got some notes here.
I have done that, says my memory. I cannot have done that, says my pride, and remains inexorable. Eventually, memory yields. Did you take any takes on this? This is a very interesting one that I liked as well.
Mm, like, yeah, I mean, like, I think it kind of shows us that, unlike gods, I like this quote from a separate reading I've done. Uh, the that time, or what is it? They say something like, boredom is the luxury of the gods who have nothing but time.
Hmm.
And that the way that I read this passage just now was just like, we don't really have this sort of like, this ability to be like all present, like omnipresent. Like we
Hmm.
have these things called like making promises, as Nietzsche might call it, or
Hmm.
retrieving memories. that kind of delimit our experience. And oftentimes, when, let's say, we act on something principally that someone remembers, oh, wait, that goes against your principles. I remember such and such thing that you did in the past. And the person might like kind of like, be red in the face and no, I couldn't have done that. No, that definitely wouldn't have been me. We've had these moments where like, we kind of try to shrug off like a sort of past predilection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it says eventually uh, the memory does yield. That eventually we kind of try to not be this liar that props up 20 lies, to keep that one lie right. That we want to have some sort of consistency about our character.
But that's so I read it as so the memory is saying that I did something, right? And you, because of your morality or whatnot, you might say, I cannot have done that. There's no possible way. It's not the kind of person that I am, right? Eventually, memory yields is that you kind of remember it differently than what happened, just so that you could live with what you did. Does that make sense? Because memory is what is
Yeah.
yielding. It's not your pride, right? So you kind of like having this cognitive dissonance of like, oh, my memory is showing me this, or somebody told me this is what I did, and I couldn't have possibly done that because it goes against my belief. So I'm going to think that they're wrong or that I remember it incorrectly because that's easier to live with than saying that I lived against my own morals.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it could go both ways, but I like your explanation better because I think that happens more often.
Yeah, it's it's like kind of you're kind of lying to yourself so they can live with what happened, kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, aphorism 69. One has watched life badly if one has not also seen the hand that considerately kills.
Was badly if one has not also. Yeah, I'll be honest. Whoa, shit. I'll be honest. I can't make much sense of that right now. Reading that over a few times, and I probably have to hear what you have to say first.
Um, it took me a little while to kind of look into it as well, but the way I see it is that you can't fully understand life without also like feeling the losses or seeing the losses and seeing the darker sides of things, right? That like you can't just observe life go if you don't see those sides of it. Like you can kind of like watch Disney Channel all day long and think that life is all merry and beautiful, but it's not, doesn't quite capture the reality of life, which also has death and murder and all these bloodshed, right? uh, Bombings and all the stuff that's also part of life as much as all the good that is in life, right? There's creation, birth, um, you know babies, and you know sunsets and sunrises and rainbows and all the beautiful stuff. But if you kind of look away from the shadow, look away from the death that also exists, the destruction that also exists, then you have watched life badly. It doesn't quite show you the full picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like no, life giveth and life can also taketh away or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't
And
remember the
both.
exact.
Yeah. Well, the God giveth and God taketh away. But yes, it's the
Yeah.
same idea that you kind of have to see both sides of the coin.
Yep.
Um, all right. Aphorism 70. If one has character, one also has one's typical experience which recurs repeatedly. He's getting
Oh.
a little too deep with some of these, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but like, see, and that's what I don't like is that there's a quote like this that comes by and it just, it swirls in every like midwit's brain, excuse my use of that term.
Swirls
Like,
as well.
it's the eternal return, it's some more fati, I found it. Look at it, look at it. It's just like, I mean, that's prima facie true, and that doesn't go any further. Hi, puppy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Papa, yeah, shit, Christ. Sorry, dog just got let down and just in my face. Big waggy German Shepherd tail bopping about. Um, uh, but yeah, like it just that it. Hold on, if one has character, one also has one's typical experience with. Yeah, so like, I mean, it's a simple psychological thing in my opinion. It's just like, oh, well, uh, you if you're a character like in a TV show or a play, you're going to uh, inevitably always be that Romeo that always takes that poison. That like if you are a titular character of a TV show, your mannerisms are so concrete that you
Mm,
will always have similar experience. Like have you seen Big Bang? Or I'm just throwing out a random TV show.
yeah, I have.
Okay, so Big Bang Theory. Sheldon is always going to fall into the pit of being Sheldon. He's going to be over analytical. He's going to be a little bit, hands off when it comes to his social intelligence, to the point that it might be offensive to some, but maybe endearing in the end, for others. And he will always experience the backlash of that he does with his family, with his friends, with his life experiences,
Hmm.
and it will recur inevitably, and will recur repeatedly.
Mm. That
Because
the
he's
pros.
unabashedly Sheldon Cooper.
Yeah, that's true. Valid way of looking at it. Yeah, I mean, also if you are trying to like live life out in a certain way, there's a certain kind of order or certain kind of repetitiveness in the way that you live because you have promises to keep, and you have responsibilities, and you have a certain order in your life and the way that you do certain habits you follow through with, right? And that's the typical experience which recurs repeatedly. The more times you repeat it, that's kind of the essence of who you are, as the habits that you uh, repeatedly perform. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's a sign of character to have habits rather than someone who's like kind of disorganized and all over the place all the time.
Exactly. Yep. No. So that's that. Yeah. It's just I always tell people. I'm sure you've heard me say this before. I say it almost too much. That I appreciate when there's a consistency in somebody's character, even if it's something that I find dislikable at the
Mm,
end of the day or in some capacity. I can rely on them to be this person at the beginning and end of the day,
yeah,
like
yeah.
through and through. Like they're like they annoy me with how much they bore me with idle talk and chatter. Good, they will never switch that up because I know that they will always do that, and I will
That's their character. Yeah.
definitely trust that person more
Hmm.
than like say someone who's shifty or inconsistent.
Yeah. Nietzsche talks about in Genealogy of Morals the promising man, right? The guy who's able to, you know, um, follow through with what he says, and that's kind of what allows society to exist. Is that people are not complete chaos. They're able to follow through and follow the things that they're saying that they will, and not just take your money and run every time.
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah, that's an important part, is to have people who are not just contradicting everything they do and say. All right, Aphorism 71: Sage as an astronomer. As long as you live, Wait, as long as you still experience the stars as something above you, you lack the eye of knowledge. Very beautiful aphorism.
Yep.
Um,
Uh, Sorry.
yeah, the way
Doing
I,
game stuff. So as long as you still experience the stars as something above you. Yeah, yeah. I think of Nietzsche's quote. I think it's in here of superspection and despection, like
uh,
seeing things from a height.
yeah,
Yeah,
I also see it as like if you consider like everything exists. The hierarchy of values is kind of in your head, right? So you kind of are following this hierarchy of values based on what's important to you and how you evaluate it, right? And the Ubermensch or whatnot is the person who's able to reevaluate it, right, or even flip it or whatever. Kind of creates his own values, and so that's also goes along with this. Like if you look at the stars and you think of it as some kind of undeniable thing that the stars are above you, um, like this is just how it is, then you lack the eye of knowledge, realizing that you are the one that considers that above you, and you are the one that sees things in a certain hierarchy, and you kind of are the evaluator of these things. Make sense?
yeah.
All right. Now, aphorism 72. Not the intensity, but the duration of high feelings makes high men.
Easy enough.
Yeah, I mean, if you chase temporary pleasures, they generally tend to be leading to destructive ways versus chasing pleasures that are, you know, more strong, high intensity, and also strong in duration, like lengthy. That is a sign of higher men, because if you are able to produce such a world for yourself that lasts for years, that's way more powerful than you know being drugged up and getting a feeling of euphoria for half an hour. So it's all about the duration of the high feelings that makes high men, not just the intensity of it. And it's I think that's the definition of like what makes someone an ubermensch or so a higher type, is whether or not you have the qualities in you to sustain that kind of high feeling in yourself, the strength of the spirit in yourself. And goes back to what we said, which is like how many impurities can you take in and still stay strong? That is and then still not affect your high spirits. That's a sign of a high man, someone who's a higher type.
Yep.
All right, aphorism 73. Whoever reaches his ideal transcends it. Eo ipso.
Is that like in itself? Hold on a second. Ayo. You
Ipso
probably have
is
it on you. By the
um
very act or quality thereby.
let me get to the bottom here. That's what yeah, it says in itself. I think that's something like that. I defined it. Let me see one more second. It means by that very fact, thereby. Um, I mean, I think it's self-explanatory, right? You can't once you reach the goal is no longer your goal. Like you have become
Yeah.
beyond the goal by definition, because now your goal is you have moved. The goal has moved further away, right? Your goal cannot be where you are. You have transcended it, not just reached it. You have transcended it by the fact that you have reached it.
Yep.
Now things, there are new goals. All right.
No doubt.
Uh, Many a peacock hides his peacock tail from all eyes and calls that pride.
Yep. I mean, like, hold on. Same thing. 65A, note one above, just so that we're consistent here.
I wonder why he did. I just realized he did 73 aphorism and 73A aphorism. I don't think I've seen that before.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So it's the same with that 65A. It's just for some reason in earlier editions he just put the same number twice.
Nietzsche did, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. In the original edition and in the second edition, the section bears the same number. In the third and fourth editions of 93 and 94, editor introduced minor changes and renumbered all the sections from this point on. In the standard editions, the section is distinguished from the one preceding it with the addition of A. Schlechte, whose edition of the works in 3 volumes is widely considered impeccable philologically, follows the standard editions, although he purports follow the edition of 1886. Okay, so yeah, okay, so yeah, basically, like Nietzsche maybe at worst like didn't know how to count for a second, or at best like had a reason to connect the two aphorisms.
Hmm.
But in any case, they weren't marked with that A in the 1886 edition. So there had to be a distinction between 73 and 73 is all. Yeah, but aphorism seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah. Let me see if he says anything like Kaufman says anything. Yours isn't a Kaufman, right?
Oh, I got Kaufman actually. This is my
Oh,
one of the few Kaufmans I own.
nice. All right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the way I saw it is that you kind of hide your true self from others, and calls that like a sign of your pride to keep your real self hidden away. Um, but it's kind of doesn't really make any sense because you should be proud of who you are and show up as yourself rather than hide everything about yourself and call the act as if, oh, I hide it because I'm kind of, I don't open myself to others and that's a mystery thing that you're going for or whatever. But it has the opposite effect. You're not being authentic to yourself.
Yeah, right.
All right. Now, 74. A man with spirit is unbearable if he does not also have at least two other things: gratitude and cleanliness.
Okay. I can't remember if this is like the virtues, the 4 virtues that sometimes Nietzsche wavers on, but I think it's that they're talking about. Yeah.
You would have to, share that whenever you get the time. I kind of remember it, but not from the top of my head what those virtues are.
Sure.
I see it as cleanliness, as in you have to have some kind of order, and gratitude, as in you shouldn't forget the roots and the genealogy of your ideas. Um, you know, don't go around saying that you lifted yourself up from your bootstraps. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of the
it's
same thing with intensity, but duration, sort of a thing.
Say that again. How do you connect the ideas?
72 and 74. A man with spirit is unbearable. And I'll change spirit to intensity here for a moment. A man with intensity is unbearable if he does not also have at least two other things: gratitude and cleanliness.
So how are you tying the gratitude and cleanliness with duration, or are you
That
doing
just it's like it's the same with like someone
Oh,
that like um having the
things.
modesty of a god amongst men, that this
Mm,
sort of just ability to have some you could say like humility probably is a better
mm,
word for
mm,
what might be said with the duration of high feelings. Because a man, it's like saying a man with spirit is unbearable if he's not disciplined. Because he's just inconsistent. He's all over the place. I mean, go figure. I'm supposedly bipolar myself. In my moments of mania, like I tend to be a little bit unhinged or unbearable or like a little hard to bear with. Um, that it becomes much more of a durable like a tolerable task if I have some humility about myself when it comes to how I express myself.
mm. And I like Kaufman's note on here where he says that gratitude is basically the opposite of resentment. See at the bottom there?
Yeah,
Once
like
you,
it is. It's this guy that knows, like, man, I know how to keep clean, but if I have to wash myself with dirty water, I'll do it. Like I will. I'll be able to, have myself be robbed on occasion of my cleanliness and gratitude. But that inherently being your character and not something that you just, whine over when you lose it for a moment. Like that's the true humility. That's the true gratitude, the true cleanliness that one maintains internally with their character.
mm. Yeah, but I never thought of gratitude as the opposite of resentment, but that seems like it's valid.
I might be able to mull on that a little bit and give you a better answer, like the direct
Yeah, yeah,
answer of gratitude contra resentment. But I think we've talked about the aphorism a good deal.
yeah, yeah. All right, 75. The degree and kind of a man's sexuality reach up into the ultimate pinnacle of his spirit.
At the very tip of it.
That's funny. You know,
Uh,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead if you share your thought.
Just it's a little bit lost on me just because sexuality is something that I mean, and funny thing, I don't think sexuality is used often as a word in his corpus, like specifically sexuality,
Yeah,
like
yeah, valid.
sex both as the act and as like the idea of sex contra gender. I think those things maybe, but as far
Mhm.
as like sexuality as the specified word, I don't think that there is much that is
Said about it.
you that yeah, like that German word, I don't think is used often. So I
Yeah,
would have
okay.
to look into that. That's
Yeah, if you
interesting.
don't mind, putting an note on that because that's interesting to kind of delve into because I didn't catch on that he's using sexuality as opposed to any other word that he's more commonly more likely to use. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know why he went particular for or the Kaufman went for that term to really capture the idea there. See what the German word is and if it's different. But you know, this kind of ties multiple ideas in my head. One is Jung. Again, I'm going to bring him in where he talks about how um, a man's like libido is the person's strength of spirit or whatever, right? So, and I think Nietzsche has said something along the lines of, it's going to get a little graphic, but that semen retention is a sign of like way to gain strength and whatnot, right? So there's that idea of like the
Yeah, so where did
sexuality.
you I don't
Oh,
doubt it, and I vaguely remember that he might have said that somewhere, but he said that somewhere.
yeah, you did. Yeah, so but that's the idea of like you sex and the idea of strong spirits that kind of strongly tied together. Um, and what was I going to say about that? That's why Jung in his writings would tie it into like, the mental fortitude of the spirit itself is the sex drive. um because the intensity of the sex drive, that it doesn't mean that it's just an obsession over sex. That's not what that means, but it's like what you feel has the intensity of the sex drive is the spirit. In They kind of seem to have a lot of commonalities there, which is a lot of depth to go into with Jung's psychology, because he talks about like the other drive being love. So yeah, it's like sex on one eye, it's the sex drive being on one end and love being on another. Both are also tied together, obviously, because they're not distinct ideas. The idea of love and caring about the herd, and sex drive, which is more about getting, possessing, and getting what you want, kind of thing. Yeah. I think where did this, I don't know if Nietzsche mentioned something along those lines elsewhere as well, as a libido being the matter of your will, libido and will being similar ideas. But that's a here is a in this aphorism I feel like
Oh,
he kind of lights it. But yeah.
yeah. I was just remembering too. So you remember this quote that he kind of like takes off of Goethe with regards to uh and maybe not female sexuality, but the eternally feminine. Do you remember this?
Um.
Like he
I'll,
says, no, no, no. Like the eternally feminine doesn't draw us up; it draws us down. Do you remember this?
I can understand it, but I don't remember it.
I would wonder what the similarity is between that passage and this one. I'll look up the sexuality thing and I'll try to pull up that passage afterward here when we're wrapped up.
And it's also very interesting because he talks a lot about sexuality here, and I think it's good to keep the idea of the eternally feminine and eternally masculine in mind, because you're going to read later aphorisms are going to be very like, comes off as very strongly sexist, but at the same time I think it's, the way I take it is that he writes that almost to kind of shake off superficial reading into it, because you have to look at from the lens of what is eternal and what is he saying about the characteristics of feminine and masculine, and what they represent, right? So yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But libido and the will has a very strong ties together, and being sex drive and the will, and love has being the opposite counterpart, which is deeply tied to the idea as well. All right. Aphorism 76. Under peaceful conditions, a warlike man sets upon himself. Very.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this one enough to know what it means, so I'm good here.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it as well. Like a hermit being trapped by himself just ends up being tangled in his own ideas and his own
Mhm.
thoughts, because he doesn't interact with the reality of life. And same goes for peaceful conditions. If it's too much of a utopia, you end up kind of going into self destruction. And I think mankind in general, at least on the western side of the globe, uh, we have such tendencies arising as well, because it's sometimes when things are too peaceful, we look for trouble. We look for, oh, this is politically incorrect or whatnot. We get too sensitive, which Nietzsche also has talked about elsewhere, that the people who are the most sensitive to the pain are people who have never felt it.
Right.
And that is actually physiologically true. Um, all right. Aphorism 77. With one's principles, one wants to bully one's habits or justify, honor, scold, or conceal them. Two men with the same principles probably aim with them at something basically different. Um, I'll kind of share what I'm saying about this is like you could have a strong drive, right, towards which is your strong principle of like I want to do this or I want to make this out of my life or whatnot. But you also have to meddle with the other things in your life, which are with your other inclinations, right? Which your other things, whether it's to procrastinate or uh, leisure about or like do something completely different than these principles, and you kind of bully your habits and you try to do different things to kind of make it so that you can stay true to your principles, but because of the inclinations pulling and pushing on your principles, it'll kind of change the trajectory of where you could go. And that's the same idea, is that two men with the same principles probably aim with them at basically something different. It's like they both have the same principle, but because the pushing and pulling of these other drives, these other inclinations, habits underneath their main drives influence the trajectory of what they end up aiming for. So it all matters on how you organize the inner hierarchy of your drives and how well you are at bullying one's habits and concealing other ones and putting all the other ones in order, these underdrives or whatever you want to call it. And everybody is different in terms of how these tensions influence them. And same goes for the environments. And so you could have the same principles, but go completely different with them. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Aphorism 78. Whoever despises himself still respects himself as the one who despises. I love this one as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. A lot of people don't understand like the utility that comes with. I love the quote where he's like, suicide has gotten one through many nights. That a lot of
mhm.
people don't really understand the great utility of self-deprecation for one thing.
Mm.
Yeah. Like,
I want to
like
elaborate in that.
yeah.
Like, give me an example
Well,
of when self-deprecation.
self-deprecation. Yeah. So self-deprecation and despising oneself, very similar things. Can you agree with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like one is a very sublimated, very lighthearted, sometimes behavior with that regard, but I think they're modally the same thing. My point is that
Mm.
uh, as that one respects oneself um, as one who's despising. Like if I want to despise someone, I'm giving them my time. In some manner of speaking, if I really do put my time into it, and for me personally,
Got
I
it.
am respecting them to the degree because if I despise them, sometimes they're a friend of mine that I think is doing something that's not good for them, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that they know that what I find despicable about their behavior is well known.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to oneself, though, like if I am making sure that people are privy to the fact, no, I'm being self-deprecatory. Like it's not anything that you guys should worry about. I'm just trying to shrug about like life being light about life. This idea that I really like someone who can poke fun at themselves. So that's the same thing.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Also reminds me of early aphorism, like in the earlier chapter, where he says that you have to be able to look away when you don't care about something or you feel like you're arguing with Christians or whatnot, and you don't have to interact and try to correct them because, like you said, by trying to correct them, it's a form of respecting them and trying to mend their ways or thinking they're fixable, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
you just have to look away. Uh,
And when I'm despising someone I really actually despise in the whole, then what I'm doing is something very sensible. I'm letting them know, like, hey, I don't like you, and I have to say something about it because I feel that strongly.
Hmm? Um, yeah. Another one. Another thing I wanted to say is like, you know how like when you're really um there's that saying like you're your worst critique, right? Like a critic, you basically scold yourself more than the other people around you might. You think of the worst case scenarios in terms of like you make yourself feel the worst in a way, right? It's hardest to feel good about yourself in a sense. Um, so but even in those cases when you being hard on yourself more than you should be, you're the reason you're being hard on yourself, that why that affects you so strongly is because you respect your own criticism. So that's kind of interesting to value. Like even if you think of yourself as worthless, you're still valuing the person who's saying inside of you that you're worthless. Kind of a contradiction.
Yeah, yeah,
All
exactly.
right.
That's on the nose.
All right. Aphorism 79. A soul that knows it is loved but does not itself love betrays its sediment. What is at the bottom comes up. This is a very like psychological leaning aphorism. I mean, all of them are, but uh, it's basically like it doesn't matter that the whole world loves you if you feel terrible inside, or there's demons that you're hiding from at the bottom, like your repressed side or your shadow side, whatever you want to call it. Those things will boil up to the top, and it doesn't matter how much external love is there. If you don't love yourself internally, don't feel good about yourself internally, it still rises up to the top and ruins your perspective. Um, and it's, in elsewhere, Nietzsche has said that you something along the lines of your philosophy is a confession of yourself, like your own will, the way you look at the world. And so it doesn't matter that the whole world loves you, you can still feel very miserable just if you don't see that about yourself. So it's important to kind of not just not to really seek external validity, but also um, building yourself from the inside, knowing yourself and loving yourself and all the other stuff.
Hmm.
All right. A matter that becomes clear ceases to concern us. What was on the mind of that God who counseled, Know thyself? Did he mean cease to concern yourself, become subjective? And Socrates and scientific men.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Uh,
It's a lot to chew
Goes
on
back
here.
to that aphorism earlier. That to what is it? The Yeah, knowledge for its own sake. That is the last snare of morality. But that one comes completely entangled in it once more. That um that the cease to concern yourself, become objective. Socrates, is a scientific man. But hey, like uh, become apathetic in your. It's just by it's a warning. I would say maybe not exactly a warning, but it's apt enough to call it a warning. I think
What is the warning again? Say that again.
this aphorism that a matter that becomes clear ceases to concern us. Like like no, like, oh, I have the knowledge now. I can cease to concern myself with it.
Does that ring true from your perspective?
Oh boy, sorry.
Because the,
Yeah, what? Because
Does
what?
that ring true from your perspective? Did you feel like that's kind of hitting the nail, or what are your feelings about that part of the aphorism?
Uh, I don't know. I honestly, to be quite honest,
Yeah.
like when I said that part of the aphorism, I lost myself again. Um, go figure. But no. So the rest of the aphorism is what spoke to me mainly, and
Okay.
what that was to me is that like, okay, uh, know thyself, cease to concern yourself, become objective. And what Socrates advised, what scientific men advise, it corrupts. It corrupted the youth. It puts you in a way that like is not behooving of you to partake in.
Yeah, Socrates said the way he said to be objective, which is to look outside yourself, which is kind of, and Nietzsche is asking, is this the same as what they used to say, know thyself, which it isn't in a way because you're learning about what's external to yourself. Um, but anyways, the first line, a matter that becomes clear ceases to concern us. Um, Kind of tying this back to again Jung, because he said how like oftentimes you see people like struggling with their behavior because they kind of repress certain parts of themselves, right? So they're acting upset about whatnot, and they don't realize that they're upset because of something that happened to them, or like they don't really realize why they're depressed about something, and it really they struggle with the demons of like why I feel this way. I don't know why I feel this way. They're kind of pushing away and bottling away those feelings. And as a psychologist, um, Jung saw his role as making this is kind of what he said was the whole point of psychology is to make the unconscious conscious. What is unconscious to you, what you have hidden away but are influencing your behavior, making that conscious to yourself. That's what's going to give you control over the situation. And eh, weirdly enough, he would say that just just the patient understanding why they were feeling that way and what made them feel that way resolves the problem. Weirdly enough, because they weren't able to put a pin on like why am I feeling like anxious? Why am I feeling really uncontrollable with XYZ? That difficulty is what made it worse and worse and worse. Instead, they had to face the thing that they were fearing, which is whatever trauma or whatever they were expressing in this form, and make it conscious to themselves of why this was happening to them and why they were reacting this way. And that helped kind of come to terms with it and resolve it as a result. So that's kind of what I got from a matter that becomes clear ceases to concern us. Like once you've made the unconscious behavior that you're doing conscious to you, you have gotten a good hold of it and it no longer concerns you anymore.
Okay, that makes sense. Like basically, it is like the ideal that transcends itself. Like once you've attained
Yeah,
the
that's
goal, it's now no longer. It's funny. It is. It's like it allows itself to seed itself into our memory and our cognition, and so kind of like returns back to nature.
mm-hmm. That's a I never tied those ideas together, which is insane that you did. That's really lovely that you tied the idea of ideal and transcending, which Nietzsche mentioned earlier. Once you reach a goal, you transcend it.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's things like cognitive dissonance in a very conscious state of our mind when it comes to our goals, our aims, our desires. Like I want to do one thing, but my nature and drives want another thing, and it's this whole two men or two souls in one body problem that Nietzsche points out in passing once or twice. That even at such a conscious state that humanity is in, we still have to reconcile these kinds of things, and we make these goals, motivations, ideals that we try to transcend all the time, but that once we do, it's second nature, as the phrase goes.
It's wow. That was great, man. I really appreciate your take on that one. Did not did not think of it as at that like that at all. So that's but it's really valid. You explained yourself well. Um, all right. Aphorism 81.
Mm.
It is terrible to die of thirst in the ocean. Do you have do you have to salt your truth so heavily that it does not even quench thirst anymore?
Uh, yeah, cool. I mean, clear enough that that's just what happens when you try to quench your thirst in an ocean.
Yes, but that's the metaphor of it, right? So what do you think? Like, what are they doing by
It,
salting? What is he talking about?
do you have to salt your truth so heavily that it doesn't even quench thirst anymore? It just reminds me of not sailing right over morality. That when you're in the ocean of existence and society, and you're trying to justify yourself or the world around you, and it's just see, and yeah, this sort of imagistic work is not my. I'm one of. I actually
Yeah.
understand now that it's a position in Nietzsche scholarship that you either read Zarathustra or you avoid it, like by all means necessary. And I'm in the latter camp because of that, and it is mainly because of that, because of just how, I don't want to say wishy washy, but just because of how uh, imagistic and
Yeah, yeah,
metaphorical and like not like it's not like the pointed philosophical work that in scholarship is recommended as your first read of Nietzsche, Twilight of
yeah.
the Idols.
For that
Um,
reason. Yeah.
even yeah, even when it is imagistic, it's still a good introduction, a salient introduction of his ideas. You don't get lost in this sort of like, you know what I'm saying when I'm talking about this ocean, man? I bet you don't, because it's deep. Fucking, it's well, maybe you had something that you data mined and could tell the recording, but it's lost on me what to make of that.
So so the so the way I see it is like how for food you salt the food to make it more palatable, right? So that you can actually eat it, right? To make it more something that you can accept, right? And Nietzsche had said that um, I forget which aphorism, but he said how like a strength of your will is based on how much truth you can take that's unaltered in ways, right? How much it needs to be falsified, all that tells you how strong of a spirit you have, right? Um, so, how much truth can you take in the most purest form without it being painted over and falsified? That's the strength of a strong spirit. And in the same sense here, how much salt do you have to put on your food, on your truth, uh, to make it palatable, so that you can actually um, absorb the truth as it is, right? So, with that in mind, it's like you can die of thirst in the ocean. You can be surrounded by truth, but because you want so much salt on it, the truth fails to quench the thirst, fails to fulfill any kind of longing or any kind of understanding that you seek, because it's simply like so far away at the same time from what you actually want, because you've made it a falsification of what is real. You've distorted it so much so that you can eat it more easily, but by doing so you also have failed to get the truth. Does that make sense? Like it's like you want
Yeah,
the truth, but you also want it like easy to digest. And if you ask for both, then you'll have something that's easy to digest, but it also
yeah.
doesn't really ever fulfill your hunger for the truth.
I guess I got caught on the first sentence, and it made me not think. Well, if I just redact the first sentence, I could totally tell that meaning from that
Yeah,
sentence.
yeah, yeah. And that's what he's claiming, that now if you kind of look at the first line after you get that sense, it's like, oh, it would be terrible to die of thirst in an ocean. You could be surrounded with food, but if you're like, oh, let me do all kinds of modifications to the food to make it more palatable, you might never fulfill your hunger as a result, because it's just not what you seek at the end of the day. That's not what your spirit seeks. You never really get anywhere with it, because it's
Hmm.
so, you know, so not what it's not the truth. Yeah. All right, aphorism 82: pity for all would be hardness and tyranny toward you, my dearest neighbor. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Pity for all. I can't remember if that's. I think that's because Mitleiden is compassion, or shared suffering, and then Leiden is suffering. But I don't think pity is the same word there. Actually, now I think about it. Huh.
I'd see it as pity for all is like what comes out of showing pity for all. It's kind of like the goal with that mindset is more democracy, of like equality for all, right? And what happens with equality for all, it's a tyranny to what's different about you, right? They try to make everything equal, so you as a authentic self needs to be, dismantled in a way, right? Because you have to give up what makes you different, because the goal is everybody's equal and everybody has the same thing as everybody else. And so that um comes as a tyranny towards you. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? If
Yeah.
everybody's equal, then there's nobody's different. And in that same sense, like, you are just bland, you're just a mediocre man, just like everybody else.
That makes sense.
All right, aphorism 83: instinct. When the house burns, one forgets even lunch. Yes, but one eats it later in the ashes. Let's talk about imagery with this one, huh?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had a hard time with this, honestly.
One eats
Um,
it later.
yeah, this is a tricky one.
Well, what did the teacher say? Skip it and come back to it?
No. So what I got from this is, instinct is what causes one to run in spite of being hungry when there is danger, right? So when the house is burning down, you run out. You don't think of, oh, there's food on the dining table or whatever, right? You just escape. So it causes us to run in
Oh.
spite of being hungry. Um, you okay?
Oh, sorry. I had a scary moment in my game. Sorry.
It's okay.
um,
And but it's also, instinct is also what makes you think about food when everything around us is in ashes. Like, everything could be burned down and degenerating, but you're still, once it's, as long as things are kind of a state of equilibrium, you go back to um wanting your food.
yeah. I mean, like, and even it's your cave. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like how else do I describe that? It's like shit. Yeah. I mean, like, I think that suffices. It's like your cave. Like you have a way about your center, including your food, like you're saying with equilibrium, that is going to be preferred by you.
Hmm. Can you elaborate what you mean by preferred by you?
I mean, just because it's like it, if you were in that same burning house with me, that is my house, right? Uh, and we were having lunch there, and like me, you're just like, yeah, fuck that lunch. I don't want to die from being burned inside a house. But you're
Mm,
not gonna want to eat that lunch. It's not your house. It's not your lunch.
mm,
You're like you. It's it's not just the lunch and the ashes thing. It's it's the ashes of your house. But maybe I'm pushing too hard. See, that's what I mean. It's just like the imagery, like, could you
it's,
be just a little more straightforward?
yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
All right. Aphorism 84. Woman learns to hate to the extent to which her charms decrease.
yeah,
There starts all the quote unquote sexist aphorisms.
yeah. Um, you know, uh, uh, I always like to say that this is the person that claimed to be the first psychologist of the eternally feminine, and that if you take that to court and understand what he's meaning, that cross culturally, he's trying to make general remarks, yes, of what he observes behaviorally. And he does say psychologist, but I do think that, if you were to kind of zoom out and take a look at this, I mean, like, what would be the equivalent for men? That's always what I like to do. Okay, well, give me the man version and tell me that's sexist still. No, it's not. It's a typical behavior.
Mhm.
It's a sex behavior. If you want to just be a reductionist and talk about our hormones, fine, do that. But it's there's some truth to it because of those hormonal exactnesses. Like, it's not just the differences. It's yeah. I don't know. I think there's some truth to this statement, and you probably have some remarks that you can make about it right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, um, I mean, I think the the way I see like eternally feminine and eternally masculine is that masculine is more about order and it being rational and whatnot, versus eternally feminine is more emotionally and instinctually tied. So um, you generally dislike something that you can't control, um, and the way that the eternally feminine woman would control things is emotionally, because that is more their strength. The feminine strength is emotional, and as you as as the ability to control it with your emotions decreases, you tend to hate it more. And the same thing for the man would be, if you couldn't um, if you couldn't order it right, if you couldn't rationalize it, no matter what you tried, it was too chaotic and too variable and whatnot, man would start to hate it because he is not able to make sense out of it. And that's why I think a Nietzschean philosophy, which is very Dysonian, which is eternally feminine, is very difficult for men, just being that all of a sudden you, as Nietzsche says, you have an open sea and every direction is good, and you're evaluating your values and you can create your own values, and there's a little too much like disorder, right? But that is what the Dysonian spirit is, that you are the creator of values and you are the destroyer of values, right? You are all of that, and that is what eternally feminine is. And so you can't look at it as a negative thing. Like you said, Nietzsche himself has sees himself as the last student of uh, Dyson, you know Dionysus. So when you take that all into control, like of course you're going to feel hate towards something that you can't control, and the eternally feminine woman is not able to control certain things using charms or whatnot, and that's what they dislike, understandably. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you look at it from that perspective, it's really, really good. Yeah, we'll do this one more aphorism and we'll pause. So it'll be like 7:30, hour and a half, and we'll continue the rest after that. Um, okay, the same affects in man and woman are yet different in tempo. Therefore, man and woman do not cease to misunderstand each other.
I've been looking for this one for a long time. Holy shit. Thank you. Sorry. I'm glad that I'm doing this with you. Okay, yeah.
um,
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like, this is exactly what I'm saying. Like, you could take the same phenomenon that transcend the gendered sex as it is a binary and say to yourself, mm, but even these like behave a little differently. I mean, like you talk about, say, physical output and duress. Like if you were to say that, it's not because a man is physically stronger that a woman can't be allowed to participate in some sports or something like that. But just showing the tempo at which in different areas, obviously there's something to be said about the who has the upper hand tempo wise in that regard, if you wanted
mhm,
to say it like that. But like the oh, what's the I'm trying to remember the phrase in my band class. Uh, the fastness and lento. I can't remember the fastness um, word in for musical notation. Because he's making an analogy here with tempo to music in one capacity. But tempo, he's just even meaning more generally. Like that there are differences where, like, say, a woman's, say, cunning operates in a different kind of tempo than a man's cunning does. Say a man's, uh, you know, way of conquest, it has a different tempo than a woman's way of conquest.
mhm,
Anyway,
mhm. That's a good point that you're making. Like, yeah, the way I was seeing was how again the eternal masculine, eternal feminine, they're not really, they're one and the same in a way because they're opposites and the same. It's like yin and yang, right? So that's where he kind of, by saying that they're different, they are different in tempo but are same in affects, kind of implies that they're kind of both tied to music. They're both of the same thing, but they're different tempos. They're different and same at the same time, which is weird for us to kind of wrap our head over. Um, and that's exactly his point, is that that's why men and women cannot understand each other, because there is a difference between them, but the difference is also kind of weirdly um, tied eternally, and also there's a sameness across at the same time, which is that they're both music.
yeah,
Like yin and yang are like interdependent on each other, but also opposites. They need each other, and yeah, that's the way that it ties. You can't think of it as like one's better than the other or whatnot. It doesn't make any sense because they're both different but the same at the same time. But yeah, we'll stop over there for now. I wish we had stopped there because the next aphorism is also going to be a difficult one to go in. But yeah, we'll kind of start out from there at 86 next time. Um,
yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. I guess people were busy today, but we'll see. Hopefully, more people join in the future.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. Hopefully so. You take care. Good to see you, Stark.
You too, buddy. Thanks for joining in.
Yep. Cheers.